Good morning, class. Before I get into the other 5 accounting concepts that we still have to be covered, just a quick clarification in last class's exercise that we did. There was one entry in which I was talking about the partner's capital, how that gets recorded as the owner's equity, and in which the partner could get some portion of the retained earnings or also can draw from the partner's contribution, and we made an example entry. In that there was a specific reference to an earnings amount of 30,000. While I had mentioned as 30,000, it actually the example is 35,000, that makes the total 91,000 tally. Otherwise, if it is 30,000, the total is 86,000. So that is the minor correction that you will have to ensure. Now, the remaining portion of this class, I will be covering the remaining 5 accounting principles. Now, you would have understood that with those 6 accounting principles that we had already covered, you had a fair understanding of how a balance sheet is created and what a balance sheet is, and how these accounting principles are more or less balance sheet centric, which explains that the remaining 5 accounting principles are more or less income statement centric, or you need to have an understanding of what an income statement is so that you appreciate these accounting principles. Now, I had already explained to the class that the income statement is a flow statement. It indicates the financial performance of an entity throughout a given period of time. Now, the 5 accounting principles that we saw before was relevant to a balance sheet, which I had already mentioned that it is a status report. Now, if income statement is a flow statement, which means it is over a period of time, then the 6th accounting principle to begin with has to do something with the period that we are interested in understanding. So, the 6th accounting principle is the accounting, or the 6th accounting concept on which accounting principles are being framed is the accounting period concept. Now, what do you mean by accounting period concept? It means that every entity, we need to measure the activity of a entity for a specific interval of time, for a specific period of time. No doubt that every entity is assumed to be a going concern, as per one of the concepts that we have already discussed. We need to observe the financial performance for specific intervals of time. Now, how small or how big should this interval of time be depends on the type of entity that we are handling. I will give you 2 examples. The first example, let us say the entity, the character of the entity is in such a way that it does business only for short periods of time. Let us say at IIT here, we are having a summer camp in swimming, and there is an entity that conducts swimming camps, coaching classes during summer for 1 month period, and this is the entity, which means the time interval that is of concern to us is just that 1 month period. So, 1 month period, students come, join, pay fees, there is expenses, you incur those expenses. At the end of 1 month period, the summer camp concludes and then the entity disappears. This is one example where the interval that we are concerned is just this 1 month period. But invariably business entities operate beyond this 1 month time intervals. Business entities are assumed to exist for an infinite period of time. So, typically the interval that we are interested in understanding is more than this 1 month period. So, we have this terminology called the fiscal period, and for business entities which operate for an indefinite period of time, as per the going entity concept, the longer time period is what we are interested. Now, as the entity is a going concern, we need some reasonable time intervals, at which point of time we need to understand what has been the financial performance. So, the accounting period concept says that define this specific time interval, and invariably this definition, this duration of this specific time interval is in alignment with what an accounting period is. Generally it is a 1 year period, and that is why you find annual reports on an every year basis for various business entities, year ending 2008, 9, 10, 11 and so on. So, the accounting period in general for a going concern whose existence is for an infinite period of time is assumed to be 1 year. That is a standard unit of accounting period, which means for a majority of statutory purposes we submit income statement and a balance sheet for a 1 year period of time. Sales revenue at the end of 1 year, during the period of 1 year, and then we record expenses during this 1 year period, based on which we find the financial performance. So, this 1 year is a unit accounting period. But having said that, as somebody internal to the organization, let us say I am the management, I would like to know at different time slots what has happened to the entity. Let me for example say that I took a decision today, and that I would like to know the impact of this decision on the income statement 2 months later, 3 months later. And I have already told you that the accounting system records every activity in a concern almost on a day-to-day basis, which means 2 months later if I need to know what the balance sheet is and what the income statement is, yes, I can know about it. So, for the purpose of analyzing the impact of certain decisions, let us say within the next 3 month period, I can say I will put a halt, a time halt, and at the end of the 3rd month I can prepare an income statement and a balance sheet. And this you would see normally when companies release quarterly results. On one hand, that is also a statutory requirement, especially for listed companies. Probably the SEBI guidelines say that you will have to file quarterly returns. That is why you see companies announcing their quarterly results, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 results. Now, these are also income statements and balance sheets at the end of every quarter. And when you look at the income statement and balance sheet at the end of every year, this quarterly financial statements will be unit of those annual returns. They will be integrated and they will form a part of the annual returns that you will see. It will not be different, but for the purpose of knowing in advance, as somebody inside the organization, as a management person, I do not have to wait for 1 year to know the impact of certain decisions on the income statement. I can know immediately on a quarterly basis. If I want to do it on a fortnightly basis, yes, I can do it. If I do it on if I need to do it on a monthly basis, yes, I can do it. But for the purpose of convenience and practicality, quarterly statements are also filed. So, in general, an accounting period means a specific interval, a time interval which will provide some room for entities to understand, record, communicate and create these financial statements. So, this is the accounting period concept, which means that specific time intervals, and there should be some reasonability in fixing those time intervals. As I said before, it could be quarterly, and invariably 1 year time duration is the general norm, the accepted norm, where every 1 year an entity has to file its balance sheet and income statement. So, an accounting period provides this specific time interval by which entities have to record and communicate all the activities that happen in that particular corresponding time interval. In this case, the general case is 1 year. So, that is the accounting period concept, where you have 1 year as the general norm, and of course, there is room for all your quarterly financial statements. This is a very generic accounting concept. Now, the next accounting concept is called the conservatism concept. Now, conservatism concept is very important when it comes to the issue of recognizing revenues of an entity. See, before I explain this conservatism concept, you must understand two things: that the revenue of an entity increases the owner's equity. This we saw in last class, and the expenses of the same entity decreases the owner's equity, and it is this revenue minus expenses is your net income, and I will explain this further when I actually talk about the income statement. Now, this I am telling you now so that you do not get confused between revenue, cash receipts. Revenue is not cash, but you should understand that an activity that brings in revenue to an entity increases the owner's equity. An activity that consumes or creates an expense to the entity reduces the owner's equity. And the more revenue, less is the expense, the more is your net income. Increase in income means the owner's equity or the owner is better off. Here again, you should not confuse between income and cash, because increase in income means the owner is better off. Can we say that increase in cash also means that the owner is better off? No. Assume that an entity borrows money, and it is from that borrowal the cash balance has increased. So, it does not mean that the owner is better off. So, there is a difference between income and cash. Now, have this as the background. I will give you some specific examples for you to understand this in a better light, but for the purpose of conservatism concept, have this as the background. Now, the conservatism concept is essential because it is all about reporting. Financial statement is about reporting activities in an entity, and specifically when we are talking about income statement, we are reporting the revenue of an organization, the revenue of an entity, the sales revenue and the expenses, which means the natural tendency as human beings is to report higher revenues, so that you present the income statement in a form where the net profit or the net income is high, the profitability is high. This is the natural tendency, favorable reporting, if I can call it so, which means there is a chance that you will also end up reporting revenues which actually is not earned or cannot be earned by the entity, as a result of which we need some accounting safeguards against such favorable reporting, because reporting is done by human beings. So, we need some accounting safeguards against such favorable reporting, and this concept of conservatism is that accounting safeguard. So, this accounting safeguard ensures that there is no room for favorable reporting. Now, how does this ensure? The concept is that to recognize revenue, you need better evidence than to recognize expenses. So, that is the fundamental premise of this conservatism concept, which clearly says that recognizing revenue requires better evidence than recognizing expense. And this is the accounting safeguard, very reasonable, because if you say that you have the entity has earned revenue, conservatism says please provide me enough evidence that supports this claim that there is revenue activity. If you say that the entity has incurred an expense, then in terms of the evidence requirement, it is not as strong a requirement as the case of revenue is. I will give you a very small example. Suppose you are running a dealer network, you are running an automobile dealership, you are selling cars. Somebody walks into your store, let us say it is a Mercedes Benz. So, somebody says I want to buy a Mercedes Benz car. As a salesperson, you provide him all product literature, provide all product features, everything. Then he says, well, I like this car, so I have decided that I will buy this car next month. And then come this month end, you are filing the quarterly results, let us say. Now, the question is, based on the interaction that you had with a prospective customer, would you at the end of this month record the conversation that just gave you little signal that somebody is going to buy a Mercedes Benz from you, and because he told you that he is going to buy it next month, will you record this as a sales revenue? That is the question that you will have to answer. Now, the principle of conservatism says no, do not record this as a revenue for this month, because the sales transaction has not happened at all. It is just that the customer said I will come next month and buy the car. So, let the customer come and buy the car. Let there be some evidence that endorses your claim that the revenue transaction has happened. Now, there again there will be two specific cases. One, the customer will say here is my return communication to that effect that I am going to buy the car, and then I will do the payment later. There is a different case also how to interpret this, that I will come to that a little later. But even without that written communication, it is not advisable to record a revenue based on just an assurance somebody says that I will buy this car next month. Now, come to another different example, the same dealership store. The godowns manager comes and reports that one Mercedes Benz car is missing. Now, as somebody who is running that entity, I have every confidence that the moment that I lodge a complaint that I will get that Mercedes Benz car probably 3 months, 4 months later. But again, end of this month I will have to file my financial statement. The question is whether you will report this missing Mercedes as a bad expense or not. Conservatism concept says you report this missing Mercedes Benz as a bad expense, despite the fact that you are very confident that you will get the car 2 months, 3 months later. I think you are able to understand the difference. So, conservatism concept says that I need strong evidence to support revenue claims, and the slightest evidence possible is enough to record expenses. So, to put it in proper understanding perspective, conservatism says recognize revenue only if you are reasonably certain about it. So, there should be an element of certainty when it comes to recognizing revenues, but when it comes to recognizing expenses, conservatism says you recognize expenses if it is reasonably possible. When the slightest possibility that it could be an expense, please record it as an expense, please recognize it as an expense. That is the principle of conservatism. Now, why is this essential? Because if you look at revenue recognition, some applications, one is a direct sales revenue, where you sell something, you get cash, so there is no doubt in that, it is recorded as sales revenue. There is also something called accounts receivable. It means that you sell something on credit, somebody promises to pay something, the money, after a brief period of time. I already gave you this example before. Even in this case, based on historical customer relationship, entities record this as a sales revenue, and when they receive the amount for that, it just gets adjusted with cash and accounts receivable. A different form of accounts receivable is also accrued revenues. This is nothing but similar to accounts receivable. Let us say for a bank, it has given money, it is supposed to earn interest, and at the end of the period it does not get the interest for the loan amount, but it records that as a revenue because it will get the interest revenue after a period of time. This is a form of accounts receivable, but then you would also find some entities using this word accrued revenues. So, when it comes to revenue recognition, you have a revenue activity that generates cash immediately after it happens, or the revenue is recognized, but cash comes into the entity later. So, that is why initially I said you will have to appreciate the difference between revenue and cash receipts. I will give you a small example for you to understand that, because you need to really appreciate the distinction between revenue and cash receipts. Now, for example, let us say case 1, a cash sale made this year. Okay. So, we are talking about this year, this is the amount. Let us say 200 rupees worth cash sales was made this year. Let us see how this affects cash receipts and sales revenue, or just revenue. Cash receipts and revenue. Now, if it is cash sale made this year, which means I got cash this year itself, and principle of conservatism says because you just got cash for the sale, you do not require a better evidence because there is cash for the sale. So, you recognize that as a revenue. Credit sales made last year, credit sales made last year, cash received this year. Let us say the amount of credit sale that was made last year was 300, it is the entire amount that was received as cash this year. So, what would be the cash receipts this year? 300. And assume that this customer was a credit worthy customer, which means the principle of conservatism says though you did not receive cash, at least there is strong evidence because of the credit worthiness of the customer, you recognize that as a sales revenue, and since this is a credit sale that was made last year, this has already been recognized as a sales revenue in last year. Remember, we are talking about this year. So, there is no sales revenue for this transaction this year. Next example is credit sales made this year, cash received this year. Let us say the amount is 400. This again, I received cash this year itself for a credit sale which was made sometime earlier, already recognized as a revenue, and hence you also recognize this as a revenue for this year itself. The fourth case is credit sale made this year and cash received next year. Let us say the amount is 100. Now, what happens in your cash receipt? It is a credit sale. I have not received any cash, and are you going to recognize this as a revenue? Yes, because this customer is already a credit worthy customer. So, for this year sales, I recognize this as a revenue, but not as cash receipt because I have not received cash for this year. So, if you look at the total, it is 900 here and 700 here. Now, this is the point that I want to make, that your revenue is not equal to the cash receipts for this particular year because you have already recognized revenues for which you are collecting cash this year, or you have recognized revenues this year and collected cash this year, or the third case is you have recognized revenue this year for which you are going to collect cash next year. So, all these three combinations exist, but that does not prevent you from recording sales revenue for a particular year, because you are reasonably certain that for a credit worthy customer of this type, I can recognize this as revenues for this particular year, because there is strong evidence to support that the last 10 years that I have been servicing this customer, I have been able to collect all the cash for which I have made credit sales. So, this is the principle of conservatism, which says you recognize revenues if you are reasonably certain and recognize expenses if there is a reasonable possibility. You need strong evidence to support revenue claims, and the slightest evidence for an expense, you please recognize it as an expense. So, this is the principle of conservatism. The next principle is realization concept. The next concept that governs the 8th accounting principle is the concept of realization. Now, the previous one, the recognition of revenue, the recognition concept or the conservatism concept, is about timing. When should I recognize revenues and expenses? So, a realization concept is about amount. How much should be realized as revenues or expenses? So, realization is about amount. For example, you go to a grocery store, you buy something, you pay cash. The grocery store recognizes that as a revenue and also realizes the entire amount as against going to a grocery store, and you say I will pay the entire amount 1 month later, and on a recognition concept you find this customer doing this very often and that he has paid the entire amount the subsequent month. So, you recognize there is a revenue, and if your experience has been that every time he pays the entire amount, then your realization concept says you record the entire amount as revenue during that time. Or if your experience has been that there were occasions, and more often in the recent past, that this customer has ended up paying only 90% of what he is supposed to pay, but nevertheless I am going to recognize it as a revenue. In that case, you realize that revenue to the extent of 90%, and then the remaining 10% you can treat it as a bad expense. So remember, the principle of recognition is about timing, whether I have to recognize that as a sales revenue this period itself, vis-a-vis the realization concept, having recognized that as a revenue, how much is the amount that I should realize, whether it is the entire 100%, the 100% credit worthy, or otherwise. If it is otherwise, to what extent is this revenue realizable, to what amount can I realize this revenue, is decided by the realization concept. The next concept is the matching concept. In matching concept, I already told you that revenue and expenses affect the retained earnings. So a given event will affect revenues and expenses. So the matching concept says the effect of an event that on both the revenues and expenses must be recorded within the same accounting period. So both the effects for, let us say, a sales generating item, a sales generating event, the effect of that and the revenues and the corresponding expenses of this event has to be recorded within the same accounting period. That is the matching concept. You match revenues and related expenses to that particular revenue within the same accounting period, so that you do not overestimate your net income and hence your retained earnings, or do not end up underestimating your net income or your net retained earnings. So it says if an event affects both revenue and expense, the effect on both must be recognized or recorded in the same accounting period. So this avoids any mismatch, overestimation or underestimation of revenue or expenses, whatever the case may be. Now the next concept is consistency concept. Now different activities happen in a business entity. There will be some activities which have a particular character, and that you have decided that for activities of this particular type, I am using this method to record these transactions. And when you have chosen to use a particular method for entries belonging to the same character, as much as possible try to retain the same method unless you have compelling reasons to differ in the methodology. I will give you a small example, and I will explain about this in detail when we talk more about depreciation. Depreciation, as I told you, is the cost of using an asset. Now, there are different methods of depreciation. I can either use a simple straightforward linear straight line method, or accelerated depreciation is also possible, or sums of digits method is also possible. So, different ways of depreciating an asset. But if I have decided for assets of a particular type, I am going to follow straight line method. Then the principle of consistency says that you adopt the same method when it comes to depreciating assets of this particular type every accounting period. Do not keep changing the depreciation method, rather it is like you say straight line for this year, next year I am going to follow accelerated, the next year sums of digits, and again back to straight line. No, do not do that. As long as you continue to adopt the same methodology to record entries of similar character activities, then you follow the principle of consistency. Now, why is it essential? It is essential because let us say we are comparing financial performance, and to compare the performance of the entity we use an income statement and a balance sheet. And if you are comparing it over a 5-year period, how the entity has performed in the last 5 years, immediately I look at the income statement and balance sheet to make the comparison. Now, only if I am able to follow the same method to record entries of identical types would then be possible for me to make a good comparison. Now, if the way in which I have recorded these transactions have followed different methods in each of these 5 years, then I would not be doing a fair comparison, or I would not be doing a fair performance analysis of the firm. It is for that purpose it is always advised, because of this principle of consistency, to use the same method for recording entries of similar character. Why? Because comparison is easy. Does it mean that I should not change methodologies? Yes, you can change methodologies, as long as you have enough reasons, compelling reasons, that usually you will find in an annual report or an income statement balance sheet. There is something called an auditor's note, where the auditor would have explained that till last year I was following, the firm was following the straight line method for depreciation, and it is from this year that it is switching over to an accelerated mode, and you will have reasons explained for that. So, it is possible for you to change the methodology, but as long as you are not changing the methodology, it is easy to make a comparison, and hence that consistency is required to ensure that you follow a common identical methodologies when it comes to recording entries of identical character. Now, the last concept is materiality concept. Now, what is this materiality concept? Now, the materiality concept is very simple. There is a doctrine in law which says minimis non curat lege, which means this doctrine in law says that the court will not consider trivial matters. This is what this means. The court is least bothered about trivial issues. Now, extending this doctrine to the materiality concept, accounting is not concerned with trivial events. There should be an exact line that separates material events and immaterial events. See, you will understand that the principle of conservatism or the realization concept, there is always a room for subjectivity, because you think somebody is credit worthy, there will always be another person who will think the same person is not credit worthy. You think you can realize 100% of the sales revenue recognized, there is somebody who will always think that I can realize only 75%. There is always a room for subjectivity, as a result of which there will be judgmental errors. But as long as it falls within an accepted framework which has some reasonability, we accept the financial statements that are prepared. In similar lines, the materiality concept, there will be some events which I think it is immaterial for me to record that. I will give you one example. Let us say the business entity, the office, administrative office purchases stationery, pens, pencils, erasers, markers and all that. No doubt that the pen, pencil, marker that you purchase is an asset to the administrative office. No, but does that mean that you are going to record every pens that you purchase? And suppose you are going to use that pen for 3 years, will you be depreciating the pen at the end of every year? Pencils, will you be depreciating every month? No. Then what is the alternative? I would say I record it as an expense for that particular year, which means I just say I purchased pen, pencils, erasers for 10,000 rupees and it got consumed during that particular year. Whether it is consumed or not, that is a different issue. It is a different issue, or probably it is not even material enough for me to see whether, check whether this has been consumed in that year or not, and if it is not consumed, then the extent to which it is consumed is only treated as an expense, and whatever remaining half pencil or the pen that you have has to be recorded as an asset. No, that entire 10,000 rupees is treated as an expense for that particular year. So in essence, the materiality concept says you ignore such immaterial events. What you should be looking at is those significant material events, and it is only those events that you should be exercising enough caution, proper judgment in measuring the worth of that event and communicating it properly. There isn't a big error in your financial statement because you failed to record some of those immaterial events properly. Not that you have failed to record it, but record it properly. It is okay because it is immaterial. But the same will not protect you when it comes to recording events of great material value. So these 11 concepts, the 5 that we saw before and the 6 that we saw now, quick recap as to what they are. First we started off with money measurement, then going concern, cost concept, the principle of duality, then was the entity concept that says the individual is different from the concern, and the other 6 concepts, the accounting period concept, the conservatism concept, the realization concept, the matching concept, consistency concept and materiality concept. So these 11 concepts form the fundamentals for the accounting principles. Now why these are important, as I told you before, is because it removes to a certain extent some levels of subjectivity. I am not saying that all of those who will be following these concepts will have the same level of objectivity, but at least it would remove some reasonable levels of subjectivity when it comes to recording these transactions. Now, we know these 11 concepts. What are we going to do with these 11 concepts? Just as the 5 concepts were enough for us to understand this balance sheet, in the 6 concepts that we saw today, importantly the principle of conservatism and the realization concept, these two will have an impact on an income statement, because an income statement records your revenue, and you will record your revenue only when you think you have recognized it, and to what extent you record as a revenue depends on to what extent you have realized that revenue. So, it is very important from an income statement point of view. The matching concept says the moment you have recognized revenues, make sure that those expenses related to that particular revenue gets recorded within the same accounting period. So, you are also interested in knowing what these expenses are. So, you have revenue, you have expenses, and revenue minus expenses is your income. And with revenues, expenses and income, you will be able to estimate the financial performance of an entity. Now, this statement that captures the revenue, expense and the income is your income statement. So, when we sit for next class, I will give you a very brief overview of what an income statement is, what constitutes an income statement, and then we will start the basics on double entry bookkeeping. The income statement, as I told you before, is essential because it provides some inputs to understand the financial performance of an entity. So, when we meet next class, we will talk about income statement and also double entry bookkeeping. Thank you.